Review and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting from April 29th.
Well, if there's no other comments from whatever group they are, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
I can't second. I wasn't here.
Oh, that's right.
I'll second it.
So, John Harms, yeah. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the April 29th meeting as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we'll continue the budget income and expense review. Has everyone first had a chance to look through the changes to make sure that that's where we
Okay,
were?
just as I started to explain it, decided better wait to make sure everybody was here, so we didn't have to do it again. It's a little bit different style of report. You don't have new replacement pages. We will print it once we're finished today, assuming we're finished. We'll print a complete new budget for everybody to have when we're finished. But so the second line in on this report has the yellow highlight at the top and would be all of the changes that were, the yellow would have all the changes that were discussed at our last meeting through all of the funds through page 33, where we ended. So the net result, and this is the one that is important mostly to me, I guess, and that is our general fund. And that is that we were at $33,695 of contingency when we left or when we started our last meeting, and by the time we added, subtract the changes that were made, that is $1,950 less than that now. So it's roughly $31,500 is what we are in contingency now in our general fund. I might. Good.
So, on the council, it says in our minutes that we increased the council, line 1045, 110 on page 5 to 13,000, but I'm showing that we took out 228. So did we increase or did we, am I looking at it wrong?
You're looking at it backwards.
Okay, backwards, okay. I just wanna
We
make sure I
had 12,000 in there,
I
there's now
understand.
12,228.
Okay, so we didn't increase it to 13 as per the
Well,
minutes.
no, I think Marlissa actually went and calculated, knowing what the councils
Okay,
are
perfect,
paid, what
okay,
councils
okay.
paid.
Just so
and
that we
increased
know
it
why,
to the
if
correct
there's a difference in
number.
the minutes. Okay,
That's-
good enough.
Yes. So when it shows a negative, that really means that we added to the budget.
Right, right, yeah. Well, that's what I thought, but then it wasn't the 1,000 that was in the minutes. I
So-
just wanted to clarify, so
We left off on page 34, which is our wood stove replacement fund. We still have funds left in our wood stove loan program that we've had for a number of years. I think this originated with funds from DEQ for wood stove replacement loans. It's been loaned out and brought in. We get some income every year from paybacks. So that fund is dwindling though, as we have been in the last couple of years. We've been using this also as a grant fund when we've had some of the funds that have been available from SCOED and other agencies in the state of Oregon that were paying most of the cost of a replacement. We've also been able to been using this fund as a grant, like $500 per individual. So it's gradually using itself up, but we're getting rid of old wood stoves at the same time. Although it won't flow through here next year, there is going to be about the 1st of March next year, there's going to be about $750,000 of new money coming for wood stove change outs in the Lakeview area from the state, and that's going to be coupled with several other sources of funds from the state through housing rehabilitation, like weatherization programs and those sorts of things, to kind of double down on the money that we're expecting to get a lot of work done in the next couple, 3 years once that money gets here. on which they'll change up. So, yeah, in this fund, again, we estimate that there's gonna be $10,500 of income between the beginning fund balance and the various other incomes there, and we just budget to spend it all in case we have the opportunity to do that. Okay? Page 36, bike path. These monies are funds, we get 1% of the state highway gas tax is set aside, required to be set aside each year for bike paths and trails maintenance in towns. So, you know, our bike path income, or our gas tax income is about $140,000, so we set aside $1,400 to go into this fund. Again, we budget to spend it all each year if that opportunity comes along, or whatever amount of it we have the opportunity to use. So far this year, we haven't used any. We may before the end of June, though, so.
Is this Rockimus Park Trail a comment in that?
No, I don't think so. Ron, probably must, if that's, any work we do on that would be in our park fund.
Okay, well, I was just thinking of just spraying the weeds on the path itself, which is getting pretty overgrown.
We might be able to do that. I don't know if we can. I'll have to look at, I haven't really looked at how we use that for trails. We've looked at how to use it for sidewalks, so, and, you know, bicycle routes, and sidewalks and those sorts of things.
People and dogs.
So, I'll look into it. Okay, page 38 is what we call the Program and Project Support Fund. This is kind of a grant fund that the town created from an increase we did a few years ago in water and sewer rates. Half of that rate increase was diverted into this fund to create a fund that could be used for match to other opportunities that may come along from time to time. The value of this fund is growing as we go. This year, we're proposing to spend a little more money than we've been in the past. On page 39, we're going to transfer out $35,300 to the park fund, the balance, the budget, you know, the pool operating accounts basically. And then we have a $15,000 obligation to the pool renovation project that the town needs to account for. So that's budgeted to be brought out of this fund as well next year. So it'll grow a little less fast next year than it's been growing over the last few years, but this fund will still grow over the course of the year. Building fund on page 40, we have approximately $4,000 in that fund. It's monies that are still left over from a number of years ago when the town did a timber sale in Bullard Canyon. And we're down to $4,000. We used it this last year to pay for some repairs that we needed to do down at the emergency services building, the south side where it gets exposed to the rain and all. We had to redo some of that side, and then we put in a electric gutter, a heated gutter system to drain the water away and then heat it so it would nice up. So that was where we spent $8,000 this year. So there'll be about $4,000 left in that unless somewhere along the line we add money to it. Not proposing to it at the moment. Page 42 is the fire truck fund. You know, that fund originated originally from monies that Mayor Rick Watson did not take income when he was mayor, and he had it diverted into this fund. And this year we spent $10,000 out of this fund for the new Long Beach aerial truck that's sitting on the backside of the fire department. So the balance in there at the moment is $6,250. When they are ready and they sell the ladder truck that's the extra one now that they're changing out, then the proceeds of that will go back into this fund, and so there'll be something more than 6,000 when we get it, but, not sure when that's going to happen and what the value of it will be. Page 44 is the systems development fees. We, in Lakeview, as I think all communities know, many more do, charge development fees for when a new home is built on a vacant lot or a new development of a lot that maybe they only had water service and now they're getting sewer service in addition and other things. We charge fees that go into this fund to be used sometime in the future for capital improvements for either water, sewer, streets, or parks. I've been budgeting every year for one complete set of fees, which is $819. This year, we've already collected $1,461. You know, if we get a little growth, you know, the economy is picking up a little bit, that's likely to be more than $819, but I haven't proposed to spend any of it. It'll build up to some point in time. It could be used for expenditures to help support some water or sewer project that we may want to do in town, or something to do with parks possibly. Page 48, the street paving fund, that one is actually, as soon as, I think this is the
Last year.
46?
40, did I say 48? I meant 46, I'm sorry. This will be the last year. This one will be in our packets. This was the fund that we paid for the street improvements that were done with the bond from the town had a number of years ago. And all of the work has been completed, and when the history is out of our system, we'll be able to complete that from our, we're still paying for it, but we pay for it in a debt fund at the end of our budget. Bullard Canyon Fund is, we've ran grant funds that we've received over the years from Forest Service, various grants that we've had available to us for juniper control projects and so forth up there. We've done all of that. Last year, we actually didn't have any new money that came into this fund. So what we have there now is about $2,300 of balance in the fund. And however, this year, and we talked about that back earlier, there's, when we talked about the flood project, and the council knows this, we're going to fund the match of a juniper control project for the next 3 years in Boulder Canyon at about $12,000 a year match with state forestry out of this fund. So we're transferring into here $12,000 from the flood control fund, and then we'll transfer, it'll be spent from here to state forestry as match.
You're doing 85%, we're doing 15, correct? I think that's.
Yeah, something in that neighborhood, yeah. Yeah. They have $166,000, I think it is, and it's gonna cost us about $36,000. So the good news again, John, is that the flood control fund will
There's better
collect.
not be any snow removal.
They won't, we will quit collecting the $1.
Yeah.
But
Actually, I bet you-
in about 3 years, we'll start collecting it again
Yeah.
because it'll be
What
down.
I'd like to see is dog removal money,
Is what?
dog removal money.
Dog
Stray
removal.
dogs running around.
That's in the ammunition fund.
Oh, put her down. I
Okay.
don't know, Mayor, but there's a lot of people complaining to me about stray dogs running around, and we sit here and never do anything about it.
It's funding, John. We don't have any money. When we get into the
I
police
see-
budget, you'll see that there's no money
I
for
see
animal
contingency
control.
money everywhere, I see the big contracts to the lawyer and the engineer, I see all this stuff and yet nothing for dogs to control them.
There's $500 in the police budget for animal control.
Now, that's just one.
And, yeah, or maybe 3 or 4 a year that they, you know, they don't take them to the pound unless they're to the animal hospital unless they absolutely have to. I did notice in the paper a week or 2 ago, the county has done some revamping of their ordinances. I'm not sure what it amounts to with regards to the organizations
Licensing.
and to increase licensing efforts and so forth. So possibly with an increased commitment from the county, then we can get back and work together. You know, we had a pretty effective animal control program years ago when the town and the county worked together. And the county quit before the town did. I remember that, I was on the other side. And but the town finally had to give up too because they couldn't afford an effective program by themselves. So we may
Okay,
get
just
it.
thought I'd bring it up.
No, it's a good point. Page 50 is starting of the utility funds. These are the sewer, water, and geothermal funds for the town of Lakeview. These are pretty consistent. They, you know, the year after year, we try to spend some money for some capital improvements every year. Other than that, it's mostly just a matter of maintaining the system as we go through the year. But one of the items that I did notice as I went through this budget is I think we're short in the medical dental on the water department. I think that number, we've got 30,000. I think it needs to be about 45,000.
50, 51, 225?
50, 51, 225, Christie. 45, maybe, that's probably adequate.
45,000?
That's what it looks to me like. I throw that out for comment. It just looks like 30,000 is $5,000 less than we've already spent this year. We've got 3 months to go, so.
Is there a reason like the wages hasn't increased?
Well, the main reason was that we apparently over budgeted last year. If you look at where we are historically at, Charlie, we, at 109,000, we were over significantly from where we, for some reason, last year, we went over budgeted, so we didn't increase them this year, we didn't lower it, but we already have more than enough in the budget, it looks like, in last year's number. Okay. I want to go on page 52 down, fourth line from the bottom, line item 730, the capital improvements. I listed those when I went through our budget message. These are we have water line replacement work that we're going to do this year. And Ron, you know them off the top of your head. You want me to read them off again? They were between Center and South 3rd on G and H Street.
Yes.
South 4th Street between Mountain View and Pioneer Place, which is a kind of a short section down on 4th Street. And South G Street between South 7th, which is the street that goes to the hospital, and South 9th Street. So those are the projects that Ron has planned for water line replacements, water main replacements for this year.
Is that the reason for our increase in engineering fees too then?
Yes.
So what does the engineer do that doesn't cost this money, that's already in the retainer?
Reviews, land use plans, updates, our construction standards for the town of Lakeview. You know,
Sidewalks automatically, or no?
yeah, you know,
Replacements.
I see him pretty regularly, at least, and if not more often, at least once a week. Go over projects, things we're working on. You know, right now we're discussing, we have a shortage of water, and we've got a pond about half full of water that Jerry Berry and the ag farm would both like to have. So we're trying to figure out how that's going to be divvied up, and he plays a role in what needs to be done about measuring the water. So, you know, it's a whole host of different things.
There's quite a list on the council meetings in your packets on the engineer's report, the stuff that does fall underneath that. what do you call it?
Contingency, or rather, a
Retainer.
A
retainer.
retainer, yeah, I mean, it is a pretty substantial list in there that, of what is done, that, on top of what Ray had just mentioned, but.
Yeah, there's what I always point to, engineering services.
Yep.
All over the budget, plus the retainer. Maybe it'd be better not to have the retainer and just pay it.
Well,
when you need it.
you know, I guess, that may be, John, I guess, is, the way I look at it is, I am not an engineer, and, you know, Ron, whom a lot of the things through his departments that they do run through, and none of the council are, and when you're doing some of these projects, and you may, you know, back a sewer up in somebody's house, or, you know, whatever the injury might be, I really like having an engineer, you know, somebody with a license, and they're also bonded and insured,
And on call.
if something bad happens, you can point to them and say, you know, that they're responsible for what went
So
wrong.
that comes out
So-
of contingency.
So that's part of why we pay for engineer service. No,
So what's the retainer amount?
the retainer amount is $3,500 a month.
And you should look at what is covered under that retainer, because there's a certain number of things, just that's the retainer.
Right, so, okay.
And, John, you might want to look. at
And then
that
we
to
do
see, you know.
specific, you know, like the geothermal project that we just are at the tail end of right now. I don't have the number on the top of my head, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 that's been the engineer services. Also, it's inspection of, like in that project, it's inspecting the trench before the pipe's put in, and it's inspecting the joining of the pipes. And you know, there's just, you know, it's kind of like an attorney or accountants or an engineer, you know, they're all professionals, they have certifications, and you pay a pretty good price for the protection that those qualifications bring.
I guess I just seen, you know, after sitting on the budget committee for so many years, I just see it going up, but not that, you know, more. So
They are.
I'm just kind of trying to figure out.
Yeah.
what
Well,
it is,
we've been
so.
doing a lot of bigger projects.
Well, right, but that's what I was trying to figure out, the base
The
plus.
first time in, I think, 6 years, you know, he did raise his retainer fee last year. It had been 3,200, the original 3,500. Now, in the case of our attorney, what his provisions are is that whatever our labor adjustment is every year, then we adjust his contract by that amount. So, which actually turns out to be, of course, he gets his adjusted virtually every year, and the engineers gets adjusted occasionally. You know.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yep.
Sewer department, there again in the wages, Charlie, we look like we over budgeted last year, and we haven't, you know, the 51,000 that we have in this year's budget is probably more than we're going to spend, it looks like. So we did not raise it anymore this year. There are no specific capital projects in the sewer fund this year. There's always something that comes along that has to be, that needs to be done.
Under 52,570, dues and fees.
5, 7,
Third from the bottom.
okay.
Last year, it looks like we've got 1,017.85, and we've only budgeted 700. Is that gonna be enough, or is that?
Last year we spent
Approximately.
1,000, this year we've spent 503.
52,
And the year before
Well,
that,
that
was
was
766. So
That's
it's
something.
just curious.
dues and fees.
Yeah.
Trying to
It's
think,
700.
Is that what we hired
we have
700,
fees
but
for
they
the
spent
discharge,
1,000.
and
Yeah.
we didn't discharge last year into the stream. I'm trying to think of everything that comes out of their dues and fees. DEQ has fees,
There's a wastewater management association or something that I think we pay a membership to.
dues and fees for OAWU.
Okay.
I'm trying, looking at this and what, see the,
You know,
2 years.
maybe it
ago,
ought to be,
1,000.
I don't know what we have left this year to come out of there, that, you know, this fund, it won't hurt the fund if we have $1,000 there. If we don't have to, we're not gonna spend it, so.
So I was just looking at the numbers going, that may not be enough, and the 2 lines down for permits and licensing, we've got more than enough in there. It looks like anyway.
Well, you can wave your magic pen, Ray, if you have to.
So we are going to raise that 700 to 1,000 then? Was that the consensus?
I think it makes sense.
We can lower the permits and licensing by 300 and make, just move it on up.
We can do that too.
That way is net zero.
52,570, up 300.
Yeah. 577, down 300.
Because that's still, we're not even close to that in the last 3 years,
Right.
or 2 years.
You know, the past rate spent 9,800 in retirement contributions. And is it really going up to 14,600?
Well, again, last year, it looks like, yeah, we probably over budgeted at 14,600. We did not move it down. That is probably high, John. We were expecting, as we sat here last year, we were expecting to get a big PERS increase,
Yeah.
and it turned out not to happen. The economy recovered somewhat, and PERS is doing better, and so we didn't get near as large PERS increases we thought we were going to get. So at 14.6, this current year we're in, we're not going to go anywhere near that. I think, 10,000 is probably a number that's close, much closer. If you want to move that number down.
It's up to you, but I thought it was just kind of a
Yeah, we're not,
glaring, wow.
yeah, we were expecting a lot worse than we got.
And I'm sure we'll get something in the future that's bad too, but I don't see anything wrong with leaving it there. You know, it's,
Well, if it's not spent, then
yeah,
we'll go
if it's
someplace
not
else.
spent, it just,
Yeah, it just stays there, it becomes part of next year's.
Part of that fund.
fund.
Yeah.
It's not like it gets spent somewhere. On page 55, line item 730, again, it's kind of the, we do have some money in capital expenditure. If there's something that happens that Ron needs to take care of,
The
we've got.
sewer pump goes out, you buy a new pump. We've got
so
those
we-
manholes this year to raise down on the industrial park, so that'll take a little.
Right, we talked about that a little bit in the street fund, that, they're going to do some adjustment of manholes as part of the in-street improvements, so. But there's no major projects planned in the sewer side this year, otherwise, we kind of go back and forth, we do water things for a while as we need to or have to, and then we'll do some sewer things as we need to or have to, and so we kind of bounce back and forth. Usually don't do each every year. Okay? And we have several different loans and all in the water and sewer fund that are paying for the sewer pond improvements that were made, the purchase of the north water system, the Goldmore Terrace water system a few years ago. Those are some of the loans and long-term debt that the town has to pay for out of this fund.
So if we've got the money for capital improvement being there as far as if we need it, and the equipment and large tools, that's 730 and 740, then we've also got 30,000 in contingency. I mean, that's $110,000. $68,000. $68,000. Is that normal? We haven't spent any of that in the last year.
Of the contingency?
Well, the contingency and the capital improvement and the equipment, large tools, stuff like that, is that just all in case we need it? or-
It's in case they need it. What happens with those, if we spend half of what we budgeted to spend, it'll be added to the beginning fund balance for next year. It'll become part of the, of the 200, or 2.2 million it was at the
Beginning fund.
Of the beginning fund. So it'll be up or down. Well, it wouldn't be down because unless we did spend more than we budgeted in a line item. But if we spend less than we budgeted in a line item, then that 2.2 million would be 2.21 million, for example. Or
Right,
whatever. So, the contingency is there to be, you know, we can, at the end of the year usually, but we'll go through a set of resolutions at the town council meeting where we'll transfer if, to say large tool, something, we had a big backhoe expense this year. If we had overexpended a line item because we had that unexpected expense, then we would transfer from the contingency, you know, $3,000 to whatever line item it was that was overspent to balance it. So, I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe I'm not.
No, it's, I mean, well,
What's the
we've gone through all these other departments and we're nickel and diming
Yeah.
everything. And we're sitting here looking at $68,000 going, oh, well, that's if we need it.
We have that luxury in the water and sewer fund.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, I'm looking at fire department, police department,
Yeah.
those sorts of things going, okay, we can save $50 right here. And, well, we don't have enough for this or that.
That is what's kind of nice about, even though it's not much compared to what we have to work with here, it's, you know, this, having $30,000 of contingency funds in general fund, that's been unheard of in 8 years.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so
So
it's kind
I
of-
was just,
Yeah.
it caught my eye, was all.
Yeah.
I understand, and yeah, you're right. We need to keep funds in case there's something catastrophic happens, you know, the side blows out of the water tank, God forbid. But I mean, just something catastrophic somehow or other that you just gotta take care of.
That's our revenue department, so we have to take care of it.
So, and then the other thing that these departments do too, as we go through these budgets, is you see that we transfer $120,000 out of this budget, these budgets, to general fund for the administrative services that we provide to the utility funds. So it supports that fund, and we divide the salaries, the wages component of water and sewer with streets, and a little into streets, a little into the geothermal funds. So, we don't get down in nickel and dime it, but we probably are not charging as much as we would need to streets, for example. But streets doesn't have enough money. It's back to one of those that you're trying to find, rounding off to the nearest dollar almost, it seems like, to make the balance, make the budgets work. So these two funds in particular are the revenue funds. They're self-supporting and they do well. They're not growing fast, but they grow a little bit, and then we'll spend some money on capital projects and spend them that way. I think the ending fund balance of these funds, we started with 2.2 million, and I think at the end of the day, didn't I see that we were at one point, ending fund balance and the water fund, for example, all of the excesses in there ends up at $1,750,000.
Right.
So the difference is about the cost, about the value of the capital improvements that we're doing this year. So, so then we'll build that back up, and then we'll have another capital improvement project.
So is this money actually here? Like
Yes.
40,000 is reduced to 30,000 this coming budget year? Up by capital improvement. You got 40,000 for this year, but reduced it to 30,000 for this coming year.
Right.
The 10,000, was the 40,000 actually there?
It was available, we didn't use it, but it was available to use. Yeah, we have, I can't tell you what the balance is today, but we've got somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million, John, of cash in the bank, in the various accounts that we have available for us to use. It's not in any one of these funds, it's available to the town to use through these funds, yeah.
So if I make a motion that we reduce the water rates by 10%, would anybody second it? You've got too much cash.
I don't get the vote.
Guys, I'm telling you, politicians.
Well, you brought up a question about streetlights, you know, at the last.
Oh,
meeting.
yeah, I said turn
So,
every other
you said to
one
turn
off.
every other one of them off, and it's, again, it's in the street fund, and we don't have much money in the street fund. I would suggest that maybe instead of turning every one of them off, what we really ought to do is add $2 a year to the water bill, call it a street light utility charge, and take it into the street fund.
Not if you have thrown that in the bank.
Okay, so that's the water sewer funds, the geothermal fund. This is the DOC project, and this is the north well. And I'm gonna tell you right up front, and that is that this geothermal fund, the second geothermal fund, and then there's a construction account that's aside from that because of the project that we're currently finishing up for the Very Well project, that these are they're not mixed up, but they're extremely difficult. It probably takes us past 10 after 5, Charlie, to try to explain them. What we have done is early on in this year, again, because the town has cash in the bank, we bankrolled part of this construction project until we had the U.S. bank loan available to us to spend. And so we've spent down our beginning fund balance, or the monies that were set aside in this fund. And so I left 0 in beginning fund balance at this time because but until we finish up paying for the project, transferring funds back into the accounts they belong into, anything I would put there wouldn't even be a good guess. It would be an imaginary number. So I just left it out. So what you have in this DOC budget is the $48,000 that we anticipate that we will bring in this year from the fees. Actually, I think it will exceed that, but I think we're going to hit 49,000 or close to that this year. But that's the income from the providing heat to the prison. The expenses out of that are on page 58.
So when you do get a number, you're gonna put that in there at the beginning fund balance, that's gonna be back?
We'll put that in there, and that number may not come until actually the auditor finishes
looking at how much we
auditing
got back
this
on the
next
Very
year.
Well project.
And so then next year you will have a number in there. It probably will be a number that will be developed by the auditor.
Okay,
After they've reconciled all of the accounts.
that makes sense.
So we allocate a little of Ron's time and staff time to the geothermal projects, both of them now.
That's why they're cutting it up.
Yes, the other part of that is in the other, is in the Very Well geothermal project.
Did we just overshoot that, the current year budget by $6,000?
Looks like it.
That's what it was, okay.
Going down through this, it's starting at the DOC utilities, which is 410. It's the power bills. We have to buy a little, this and that off and on for the well or down at the heat exchanger building. I see a little number, one in there that we missed taking out. We need to fix that where it says materials and supplies vary. That, which is 611, that should be taken out. That's their mistake. It should go into, it already is in the next one, so that would change the story by $1,000.
Is that the same for the lease at the bottom, on 761?
No, it's not. That one, that $2,000 should be downward, the next one down at Utley. It's
Okay.
just in the wrong line.
In the wrong line, okay.
Yeah. We're still leasing and have access to the Utley well, which is out near the greenhouse, north of town. We recently received the water right from Water Resources on that. However, now it is being contested through an appeals process, so, we continue to pursue access to that well for 500 gallons. We have water right now for 500 gallons a minute out of the well, but, we're gonna end up with it in the long run, but we're taking a long way to get there. Expensive way to get there too, because we have another attorney working on that one for us out of Bend, so.
So what are you, the two amounts for the geothermal land lease for Berry and Utley are reversed?
Yeah, there is, this budget won't have Berry in it. Berry, I mean,
Not
it's
the
there
land lease.
because we had some
Yeah.
history of it, but the land lease belongs to Utley.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay. We take that.
Nothing there for Berry.
So it's just-
And,
So we just reverse the names on those, or I don't understand?
we just put the 2,000 in the wrong line, Christie. It's in
Supposed to be
line
Utley.
761, it needs to be moved to line 762.
To
Okay.
the- Yeah.
And line 611 in this fund just needs to be zeroed out,
Right.
okay?
Gotcha.
You look at these things a half a dozen times. and you miss it.
Yeah.
That changes our bottom line to 49 then?
It won't change the bottom line to 49, but it'll change contingency to 8,992, on, which is 850. Line 850 on page 58,
Yeah.
it'll increase that line by 1,000. Page 60 is the new Perry Well project. And so we have been collecting from the school and the hospital. We began providing them service January 1st. Is when we've been billing since then, in January, February, March. So we've been collecting from them for the resource, and at the end of June, I anticipate that we'll have about $92,000 in the bank at that point in time, which will be nice to have as some cushion for operating costs and all as we go along. Some of that money, again, once the auditors have reviewed all of the construction project, a little of that money is going to get transferred back into our DOC geothermal project because we spent it out there. Things such as, we had a $16,000 roughly rounded off fee for the Betsy credits that we had to use to apply for. It came out of the DOC fund and needs to go back there once we get the opportunity to do it. During this construction project, we had just one that comes to mind is we had a $3,500 and some odd bill from Dog Lake Construction for unloading the pipe at the various locations in town as they were bringing it in. Because Dog Lake was not under a contract that was recognized by USDA, they didn't necessarily meet minimum wage standards and all those things that a USDA government contract has to. We simply paid for them out of the $3,500 out of the DOC budget, and then so the money will need to go back there. And those sorts of things that the auditor will adjust in and put them in the right spots. So again, this budget, the fees that I've listed, starting on 103 and 104, those are pretty darn accurate. I think they'll come down just a few dollars. Might be $125,000 actually from the hospital once we have the final costs in on the project. We know that we are going to receive more Betsy credit than we had originally budgeted for. And so as we're able to reduce the U.S. bank loan before USDA takes it over, that will reduce the debt service, which is the basis of our billing to the school and hospital. So, you know, it'll cover our debt. There's no problem in covering our debt. That's not the issue. It's just that everything that we can save, every dime that we can add in there to reduce the final debt that USDA takes out, reduces the cost of the hospital. I can, at the moment, just some things I pulled out, we're going to share with you on that project. We're going to be about $14.25 per million BTUs of heat to the hospital and the schools when we get this project finished, and that number might come down slightly still, as I just said. But just to give you some idea, propane, I don't know if any of you bought any propane for your gas grill lately, but somewhere in the last 3 months, it took about $1 increase. But, so I was figuring when I did this back in February, propane at $2.25 a gallon, that 1 million BTUs, and the hospital was using propane. 1 million BTUs was costing them $27.37. So again, we're at 14, just about half as much for the geothermal. Fuel oil, and it's gone up too now. So, but I was figuring at $3.50 a gallon, it was costing them $29.41 per million BTUs, and of course the school was using all fuel oil for them. The hospital uses electricity and propane, and electricity was costing them, or is costing them, about $25 per million BTUs. So our geothermal project, however much of that we're able to reduce, they're paying about 50% what they were paying for the other thing. So it's turned out to be a good project for them, and as we discussed back in our general fund, we're going to take this next year. This is going to result in about $20,000 of administrative fee coming to our general fund off of this project as well, and that's in addition to paying some of the costs of our public works crew that's working on the project. And so it works out to be a good project all the way around for everybody. Just a couple final numbers, I guess. We budgeted, we estimated that the project was going to cost us $3,837,000. It ended up costing $3,736,000, so we were about $101,000 less expensive than we thought it was going to be when we started out. The BETC business energy tax credit that we're getting from the state of Oregon, and that's the final piece that we're waiting now for them to certify what that amount is going to be, and then we can finish up the loan. But we had estimated it at $800,000, and I do know now that it's going to be over $900,000. So we're going to have a $200,000 reduction in the cost of the project. It's going to reflect in a significant amount of savings from what we originally estimated for the hospital and the school. So anyway, it's one of those projects. The good news about it is, it's almost always that they cost more than you thought they were going to.
Right.
And here's one that by the time we bring all the pieces together, this is going to cost us roughly $200,000 less than we thought it was going to be when we started out. So the HUD grant that we've been carrying forward for years and years in some fund or other, which was $198,000, has been collected now, and it's going into this project. Actually, in our budget, we'd estimated $600,000 for the BETC. I knew later in the year it was going to be at least $800,000, but that's going to come in. All of that construction expense and income is going to be finished before the end of June of this year. So what we're really looking at are just operating budgets from here forward for the two projects. And the final one, I referred to it briefly a moment ago, but on page 63 is the debt service fund. And this fund we have to keep by terms of our note for the loan for the bond for the streets that they took out a number of years ago. We we have to keep a year's payment in reserve, and then we collect, every year, we collect the amount that is required to service the debt.
Page 63.
Don't you have one, Mike?
I don't get a page 63.
Just go to the next, there you go.
That's the next tab.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're on the
I
next
got it.
tab, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
You heard.
So, yeah, this is a separate item in our tax collections. When you get your tax bill, you'll see that there's that little extra piece. And this will be paid off, I believe it's in 2019 is the year, the last payment will be made on this. Which paid for rebuilding, overlaying and chip sealing, many of, if not all of the streets in the town of Lakeview. And as I said earlier, this is, I don't know, and Ron's here today and he can speak to it too, I think. He and I have conversations about this almost weekly, I think, if not at least monthly, and that is street funding in the long run is probably the biggest headache that we have. There just isn't the income, the gas tax isn't enough, the cost of the things we have to do in the streets are expensive. Fortunately, we are at a point where we have a pretty good street system that doesn't cost us too much, but it'll only last so long. And, we can get grants for specific little projects like in the street and, such as that, as far as thinking that we're gonna get grants for a major reconstruction of the streets of the town of Lakeview. That isn't gonna happen. We're gonna have to figure out a way to pay for that ourselves in the long run, so. That's what I,
So what's the final budget figure?
zero. It's, we're gonna spend everything we take in.
How much do you think you're gonna take in?
That 2 million in the bank's already gone.
Already gone.
So,
I'm the new dog catcher.
so is the city budget 4 million, 5 million?
The total budget is about $7 million. John, Marlissa will now create a spreadsheet for the council that has when we do the publication in the paper, it'll have a line of the total budget. It'll be over 700, there's over $7 million. That includes all of the reserve amounts and beginning fund balances, that's the whole thing. We won't spend that much money, but we'll have the capacity to spend that much money, I guess is what our budget gives us. The way we budget, they've always budgeted at the town is, they count to spend it all every year potentially, even though they never do.
Governmental accounting.
Yep.
Good.
Bureaucratic process.
Yep. So,
Is there any more questions regarding the expense review of the budget? No?
Well done.
If not, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented with the changes recommended today.
I will second that motion.
Well, I can't make the motion.
Oh,
I'm
well, then
just
I'll
suggesting-
make
You
that
make the
motion.
Okay.
I'll first that motion then.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and then first moved and seconded to approve the budget as presented today with the changes made today. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Budget's approved. That means that means we need to adjourn before 5 o'clock. 15 minutes.
Put the pressure on it, didn't you?
I did, that's it.
I saw you guys will make it on
I have
Thursday.
no more questions about it.
I don't really have any good information, but I am gonna call.
Come on, we gotta get that handle.